It's Friday, May 3rd, 2024. I'm Michael Imhotep, sitting in for Roland. Roland's attending the Presidential Medal of Freedom ceremony at the White House. He may join us later in this show. Here's what's coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. It's Freedom to Learn National Day of Action. We'll talk to the African American Policy Forum's Special Project Manager about the kickoff to Freedom Summer 2024. Tennessee State Representative Justin Jones emerged victorious after a challenge to his candidacy was rejected. We'll tell you who challenged him and why. Trump says if he gets back in the White House, he'll ensure cops have immunity. The unemployment rate increased last month, but the black jobless rate decreased in April for black men and women. Economist Morgan Harper will explain if that's a good thing. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Civil rights leaders took time today to proactively defend the freedom to learn, which is essential for education, racial justice, and democratic values. It's the National Day of Action. Civil rights leaders like Mark Morial, the president and CEO of the National Urban League, wanted to pinpoint the dangers to racial justice, democracy, and education from legislations and policies that seek to dangerously undermine truthful education and democratic participation.
Now, just a few years back, some people who traffic in the self-description of being smart intellectuals said that somehow, some way, our history had no intellectual merit or value.
Yes, they did.
And I said, you just got an F in American history.
That part.
Have you not heard of Crispus Attucks?
Yes.
Have you not heard of Harriet Tubman?
Yes.
Now, I realize you may not know Martin Delany,
Yeah.
but have you not heard of them? We are standing up because for this generation, our message is not on our watch.
Not on our watch.
Say not on our watch.
Not on our watch.
Our ancestors had to deal with a sinister individual by the name of Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Jane Crow too, bro.
Jim and Jane were flag-waving, Confederate worshiping segregationists who trafficked in the embodiment of people like Orwell Faubus, Leander Perez, and George Wallace. As our great leaders, the Big Six, Thurgood Marshall, our leaders in civil rights and black power, sought to vanquish Jim Crow, his son emerged. His son was named James Crow Esquire. James wore a suit. James had spectacles on. He had a pocket watch. And he spoke in respectable language. But his intentionality was absolutely the same. James Crow Esquire now has a son by the name of Jimmy Crow. Jimmy Crow carries tiki torches. Jimmy Crow shows up in places like Charlottesville and the Capitol with Confederate flags and flags of others, trumpeting the same old sauce as James Crow and Jim Crow. Make no mistake about it, Jimmy Crow is not a nice guy. Jimmy Crow wears no suit. Jimmy Crow doesn't pretend to be respectable. But what Jimmy Crow wants to do is suppress our votes, suppress our history, suppress the rights of women to control their own bodies. Jimmy Crow is real. Standing behind Jimmy Crow are moneyed individuals under the aegis of, and you all should understand, Project 2025.
Talk about it. Tell it.
Which are people with money and power in this country who are going to try to hide behind a screen while they pump millions and billions into voter suppression, history suppression,
That's right.
human rights suppression
That too.
in this country. To fight a battle, we must understand our power, but we must understand our adversary. We must understand that they are serious and they're playing long term.
Joining me now is Dr. Corsonia Wise Whitehead, the Special Project Manager for the African American Policy Forum and the Superintendent for Critical Race Theory Summer School 2024. How you doing today, Dr. Corsonia?
Thank you so much, Michael, for allowing me to join you today as you sit in for Roland Martin. This is exciting.
Oh, thank you. I think this is my fifth time sitting there for Roland. This is another time where Sigma comes to save an Alpha, but we're going to leave that to the end of the
And then
show.
bring the Delta along for the ride, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you know, this is something that's very important when we talk about Freedom Summer 1964. You had African Americans and white people from the North going down south to help register African Americans to vote. And we know that was very dangerous work in Mississippi in 1964. So talk about the turnout today. Talk about, give us some of the reasons why this is so important in 2024 when we are dealing with voter suppression coming out of Georgia and other former Confederate states, and when we are dealing with some people who are apathetic about the 2024 election as well.
Thank you so much for that question. So where we are now today at the end of our second annual National Day of Action is we are building this bridge leading toward Freedom Summer 2024. We know that with Freedom Summer 1964, it was about getting people registered to vote. It was about joining together to fight against Jim and Jane Crow. It's about standing up and making your voices heard. We are now here in 2024 in the midst of book banning, in the midst of the work to suppress the histories of Black and brown people and people from the LGBTQIA communities. And we're saying we will not go back. We will not make a U-turn. We actually have to push forward. And today was our line in the sand, again, saying we are not going to stop pushing back against the work that's being done to suppress us. So this is the beginning of our long-term summer-wide effort to raise up the importance of the Freedom to Learn and the Right to Learn campaign.
So on your website, you have some useful tools. One of them is the Civil Rights Majority for DEI Toolkit, the Civil Rights for Majority DEI Toolkit. Can you tell us some about this and talk about the importance of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because if you watch Fox News, they make you think that this is the second coming of boogeyman or the devil or something like that. This is going to be the downfall of America, DEI.
Well, we start by telling people they probably should not watch Fox 45. You should not go into this system that is looking to erase you and looking to act as if you do not matter, act as if you do not have a voice, act as if your history is not a part of the American historical narrative. So you should probably stay away from things that are
Okay, I'm going to go to my panel here. Let's go to Cameron C. Trimble, CEO, Hip Hop Politics Media, and former White House senior advisor. And also we're joined by Teresa Lundy, principal founder of TML Communications. All right, how you all doing today?
Doing well, doing well.
All right, excellent. So I want to go to Teresa first, then I'm going to go to Cameron, and then we'll go back to Dr. Carsonia. So, Teresa, what questions do you have for Dr. Carsonia, and what take do you have on this Freedom Summer 2024 that we're dealing with? Freedom to Learn National Day of Action. This is the second annual one.
Yeah, well, one, I am very appreciative that we are doing it. You know, what we have seen currently happening in our public school systems is that when it comes to civics and social studies, it is not a firm foundation of us learning about our history. So it does take these moments to talk about, freedom and, what does that mean and what does that mean for us and the leaders that, who are prominent today. So I think this is a great time to do so. And I'm looking forward to seeing, what other things we can expect because, it's usually things that happen at a rally. It's not just about, speaking, it's about the relationships and it's about networking. So very excited, to be part of that.
All right. Now we have Dr. Whitehead's audio fixed. So I'm going to go back to her and then we'll go to you, Cameron. Okay. So Dr. Whitehead, we were talking about the Civil Rights Majority for DEI Toolkit. So go ahead and finish your thoughts on that. What is it and why is it important?
Thank you so much. So the resources that we have on our website, including the Civil Rights Majority Toolkit, is designed to help people understand what the work is around DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, about why it is important, about why they're trying to suppress it, and about the ways they can bring it into either their own curriculum, bring it into their own household, or bring it into their own teaching and understanding. So we have laid out these resources so that people can partner with us as we march into Freedom Summer 2024, as we get ready for our Critical Race Theory Summer School, which is going to take place the last week of July. But all of this is designed to get people focused on what the bigger issue is, which is about the heart and soul of America and about this fight for democracy.
Okay, now also on your website, you have an information page that talks about what DEI supporters need to know about Project 2025. And I've been talking about Project 2025 here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, as well as on my show, the African History Network show. And I've heard a number of African Americans say things like, well, we survived 4 years of Donald Trump. Could it get much worse? And I always remind them about what happened in 1980 when the Heritage Foundation released Mandate for Leadership, which was a book that contained 2,000 policies they wanted the Reagan administration to adopt. And this is a ultra-white, right-wing conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation. And in the first term of the Reagan administration, they adopted about 60% of those policies.
Yeah.
Talk about Project 2025 and why this is so devastating for America, but especially African Americans.
I think that what people need to do first is understand that Project 2025 is happening. It is not just an idea. When policies get discussed, when ideas get discussed, when they get put down on paper, and when they're pushed to people that are currently in office, it means it's a plan that's going forward. Project 2025 promotes authoritarianism. It is a very dangerous, sweeping, right-wing conservative plan designed to rehaul this country and set up what they call America being great again, which is America focusing on being white again. It doesn't just deal with climate issues. It deals with the overhaul of education, the economy, politics, who's invited to be at the table, and how this country should move forward. People are not going to read the 900-plus document. I understand that. People don't have the time or the wherewithal to do that. What we've pulled out and what's on our website are the key points you need to know. You have to be able to discuss this. You have to be able to understand this, and you have to be able to make sure that the people around you who might be thinking about sitting out the next coming election because they don't really like Biden, so they'd rather not vote at all, helping them to understand this is bigger than just voting for or against Biden. It's about making a vote against this country falling under the control of an extreme authoritarianism plan and policy. And Project 2025, when you break down the particulars, you should be very concerned about what type of country you want to live in. You think it was bad under Donald Trump before. Project 2025 is Donald Trump in overload.
Yeah, and one of the things that people have to really be concerned about is Donald Trump does not have to worry about running for re-election. So he was tame in the first term, okay? And also, if he's reelected, I don't think he's ever going to leave office. Okay,
No,
I don't think he's ever going to leave. I don't think he's ever going to leave office. Remember, he incited an insurrection to stay in office the first time. Okay.
Yes.
So before I go to Cameron and to get a question, and I'll go to Teresa also for you as well. What on your website you list? I'm on the website right now. You list 10 actions for May 3rd. 10 actions for May 3rd. Why was May 3rd chosen for the day of action, number one? Number two, give us some of those 10 things that people should implement today.
Okay, no problem. So I want to just go back 1 second just to, as we wrap up the Project 2025. And this idea that we're asking people to get very actively involved. We're saying this is not the moment that you can stand on the sideline. Project 2025, we put it there because we want to get people fired up. We are concerned that people are starting to feel that this is not an issue that concerns them. This is an election they don't have to be involved in. This is a moment that they can disengage because they're upset about bigger issues. And we're saying this is a moment when you have to engage. This is a moment when you have to get involved, because what we're talking about is the future of our nation. We understand that Donald Trump sincerely believes that he is elected again, he will never leave office. We also know one other thing is going to happen. Immediately, you're going to see 2 Supreme Court justices put in their papers so they can resign, and we can put in Clarence Thomas 2.0 to set up the Supreme Court to be ultra-conservative for the next 150 years. So I want to just put that down in terms of the policies that we're looking at. When it comes to May 3rd, this is our 2nd annual National Day of Action. We started with this last year, where we had over 120 activations happening around the country. We had teachers and parents, professors, we had educators, we had pastors with civil rights organizations joining with us to say we are going to stand up and protect the freedom to learn. So we went back to May 3rd because it is the 2nd annual, and we've asked people to join with us and do things that are both kind of low-hanging fruit and something that's a little bit higher. So some of the things that we were asking people to do for May 3rd is to take a picture with the banned book and tweet that out. Go to hashtag Freedom to Learn or hashtag Freedom Summer 2024 and just show people that you read banned books. You may try to read banned books. You can't ban knowledge. You can't ban us. And then we said you can turn your environment into a freedom school, where you're actually sharing these banned books. You're dropping them off at beauty parlors and barbershops. You can take your church and turn it into a Freedom Sunday and share the information about what we're doing. We are making the argument that as we start today, every single environment, from schools to pulpits, community shops, barbershops, beauty shop parlors, corners, we need every single person to push in and help us as we are working out this idea of democracy, because that is what is at stake here. Not just about who the next president is going to be for the next 4 years, who is going to determine the direction of this country and the pathways that are being set down right now.
Okay, and I'm going to Cameron here in just a minute, but when I talk to people about politics, I explain to them politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. And when it comes to voting, it's not about the action of voting. It's about the outcome. So you vote for whose policies are most beneficial for African Americans, whose policies will do the least amount of harm, policies that are good for us or good for America in general, who will protect gains that have already been made, who can create an environment for you to push your agenda the farthest and get the most accomplished. So this is beyond just voting for a political party. It's not about the party, it's about the policies. Okay, so this is what I think is really important for people to understand. And you vote for power. You vote for policies that are beneficial to you, beneficial to your family, and beneficial for your community. When we change what the outcome of voting is, I think we'll change what the results are. If you think that you just vote because of Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Rosa Parks and John Lewis, yes, we need to understand their struggle and what got us here, but it's also important to understand why people fear our vote as well. Why voter suppression laws are put in place. They fear the collective power, political power that African Americans have. Cameron, go ahead with your questions for Dr. Carsonia Wise-Whitehead, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to join you today. As you can see, there's been so many opportunities from Florida to Texas and so many where they're not only banning books, banning African American studies, even fraternities and sororities, ERG groups at companies are all under threat. And I think they're just stripping away and trying to raise a whole nother generation who are ignorant of our history, taking the word slavery out of books and out of learning. Can you talk to me about how we are implementing this, like something that we do state to state? Because I think different states have taken kind of different approaches to this, whether they're putting in legislation, whether it's down to the county and city level. But I think while we need to raise national awareness, it's like we've got to really attack this state to state, because some of these laws and some of these regulations have already passed in some of these places. And I'm scared that once the genie is out the bottle, it'll be hard to get it back in.
Thank you so much for that question. We know that during Freedom Summer 1964, people were united against one common goal. They were trying to break the back of Jim Crow. So whether you were in New York or you were in Alabama, you were in Mississippi, you all had one common goal. Once that national back was broken, what we have been dealing with is the local Jim and Jane Crows and what happens state to state. This is a state level battle here. We saw that with Black Lives Matter. The push in Mississippi for freedom and equality looks a little bit different than the push in Ohio, which means we need more leaders on the local level. We need people to rise up and understand that who you put into office on the local level determines the direction of your state. Getting out and voting for your governor, getting out and voting for your board of education, getting out and being involved in local politics. I never quote Tip O'Neill except in this one instance when he says all politics are local. We need people to understand that you want to keep your eye on what's happening in Washington, D.C., but President Biden is he's not going to control the school board in your city and in your state. You've got to do the work, making sure that the people you elect are about moving this country forward, which is why we need Democrats. I always argue they have to fall in line. We have a habit of waiting to fall in love with the candidate, and if we don't fall in love with anyone, then we don't vote at all. We need to fall in line and vote down the line so we can make sure we are holding the line.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And, I explain to people it's not about Democrat or Republican. It's about the policies and understanding how to use politics as a tool to accomplish what it is that you want. Okay, let's go to Teresa. Teresa, did you have a question or comment for Dr. Carsonia?
I did. Looking at some of the comments that people have been writing in the chat, they kind of want to reiterate what day and time is this rally so they can participate, as well as the website.
Thank you so much. So our website is www.aapf.org. The rally happened today. We were at 11 o'clock this morning. We were at the Library of Congress and we marched to the Supreme Court. But this is the beginning of our march toward Freedom Summer 2024. And so we're encouraging people to go onto our website or follow us on Twitter or IG at AA Policy Forum. Connect with us because we will have more activities. For example, next Thursday, we are hosting another virtual homeroom. We meet online. You can go to our website. You can connect with us. And we get online. And we had everyone last night from Professor Kimberly Crenshaw to Reverend Al Sharpton to Reverend Siobhan. I mean, we had so many people joining us last night in our homeroom rally, which is virtual. We're asking people to start making a plan. Join us there as we lay out our long-range plan and goals for this summer, including our critical race theory summer school.
All right, Dr. Carsonia, thanks so much for coming on today and sharing this information on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
This is Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
First, President Barack Obama's road to the White House. We got about 500 copies of the book available. And so this actually is all of the coverage of the 2008 election. But the other thing is this here. I talked to folks like Malik Yoba, Hill Harper, Erica Alexander, Kevin Lau, Spike Lee, Tatiana Ali. But there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff in here as well, where I talked about some of the stuff that went down at CNN. Also, when you go through here, a lot of the photos that you see in here, photos that I actually shot, photos that were my time at CNN. And so what I decided to do, because one, I published the book and I own it myself, is that so I said, you know what, I'm going to slash the price to $10. And so we're going to have shipping and handling, $5.99. I'm going to personally autograph every copy. I'm not reprinting the book. So once we are sold out of these 500, that's it. They're gone. So you can go to RolandSMartin.com/the-first to get a copy of this book. Everybody who orders this book through the website, not on Amazon, only through RolandSMartin.com, I will personally autograph and mail you a copy of this book. It's all of the covers, the actual interviews that I did with him. And just to show you, of course, when it came out, there's actually even in here the interviews that I did with him and Michelle Obama, which won TV One cable networks its first 2 NAACP Image Awards. And so all of that for $10. Shipping and handling is $5.99. So go to RolandSMartin.com the first and order your copy today.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie of A Balanced Life. Think about the men in your life and ask yourself these questions. Who are their male role models? Who can they turn to for advice to learn about what manhood is all about? On our next show, we talk about why male mentoring is so important to men of all ages. Actor Dondre Whitfield leads an all-star cast and panel to answer these and many other probing questions.
A woman can't teach you how to be something that she's not.
That's on the next A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie on Black Star Network.
This is Essence Atkins.
It's the Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you watch.
You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
The challenge to boot Tennessee State Representative Justin Jones off the ballot for House District 52 was dismissed. The Davidson County Election Commission rejected a qualifying challenge from his Republican opponent, Laura Nelson.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
So we have the motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Unless the commissioners object, I call for the 5-minute recess.
The truth is powerful and it prevails. The truth is powerful and it prevails. I mean, this was just such a mockery of democracy, but the truth prevailed. You know, this challenge was frivolous. It was rooted in trying to delegitimize our democracy, but we saw that the witnesses came, that we brought the people, and all they had was you know, fake evidence, you know, trying to meticulously deconstruct people's signatures, and it wasn't rooted in reality. But you see all the people here who stood for truth and who stood for democracy. And so my hope is that we continue to push. You know, they've expelled me, they've tried to silence me, they've censured me, they've tried to get me to resign, they try to kick me off the ballot, but we have won each and every time because the power of the people can't stop. And this shows that we're effective, that if we were not effective as a movement, they would not be trying so hard to stop us. They would not be trying so hard. You know, people like this reporter would not be pushing out these false narratives, but would root it in the truth and would get all the facts to look at what is happening. And so we must ask people like Stephen Elliott, we must ask people like some of these folks here who published falsehoods and did not get up the whole story, you know, what actually happened and why were people being challenged who legitimately signed this, and their only evidence was quickthese.com. There was nothing based off of reality, but you know, today the truth prevailed, and it shows that these attempts to silence our democracy are not going to work, but the people will rise up each and every time to hold them accountable, to speak truth to power, to bring the evidence and the facts, and it will prevail. So.
Nelson unsuccessfully challenged Jones in last year's special election. She argued Jones missed an evidence deadline, claiming her campaign did not have time to review and submit supplemental evidence. I'm going to go to my panel on this. We're going to start with Teresa Lundy. So, Teresa, what do you make of this challenge here? And looking at an article from the Tennessean that came out on May 2nd talking about this, it says, Laura Nelson last month challenged nearly half of Justin Jones' qualifying signatures, submitting to the commission a string of alleged inconsistencies, including mismatched handwriting styles and uncrossed letter T's and a misspelled name and the name of a city street, which was changed last year. What do you make of all of this?
Well, you know, it's always interesting when elected officials become CSI agents and are now doing handwriting samples. But that's also what you're supposed to produce in court. You know, Pennsylvania, we have a very long string of challenges for those who want to run for public office. But what you have to do is provide evidence. And the evidence wasn't proven. You know, it definitely did. You know, the campaign tried it. Like every campaign, you know, if they don't want to put up, or if they do not have the funds to raise, they will absolutely put up a challenge. I have seen it more than one time. If it's not for residency, it's for handwriting, it's for signatures. But you got to go into court with a solid base, a solid foundation of facts. And if you don't, then this is what happens. You know, you now have to run a real race, and you've now taken the time that you could have been doing to campaign to focus on, you know, these miscellaneous signatures. So it's unfortunate, but I'm glad now we can kind of see the campaign go the mile it actually. So.
Absolutely. And speaking to your point on evidence, and I'm coming to you here in just a minute, Cameron, it says on Thursday, Laura Nelson dropped most of her challenges to target 3 names. Nelson did not provide any expert witness testimony beyond pointing out perceived inconsistencies in handwriting and signature styles. So, Cameron, you're involved in both hip hop and politics, and you're a former White House senior advisor. So, talk about this effort to get Justin Jones thrown off of the ballot, and keep in mind, Tennessee has a supermajority in their state legislature, both the House and the Senate. So talk about this effort and why, you know, it's so important for him to be on the ballot.
Man, I think it just really girds them that Justin is getting so much publicity. He's really like speaking for the people. I'm sorry, he and his colleague there in Tennessee. I wasn't alive to witness this, but this feels like the modern day Jim Crow literacy tests and yes. Anything they can do to kind of make sure they either take us off the ballot or make it harder for people to vote and kick them off the rolls. Like, just to really, I commend this brother. I commend him for kind of really staying strong and providing the evidence, the necessary evidence needed. When you start talking about they're challenging because somebody crossed their T wrong, or the name of the street changed in the last year, and then you can see how frivolous this was if they went from challenging almost half his signatures to get down to just 3. So I think it just really, this is something, and unfortunately a fight they may have to keep fighting in future elections. But I'm glad he prevailed, and I'm glad it shows that sometimes the truth does come out.
Well, this is a fight that's been happening since at least 1870, even going back before that, 1868, the Opelousas Massacre in 1868, where African Americans were killed for trying to vote. So this is a continuous fight. All right, Roland Martin Unfiltered will be right back after this break. You're watching the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, the wealth gap has literally not changed in over 50 years, according to the Federal Reserve. On the next Get Wealthy, I'm excited to chat with Jim Castleberry, CEO of Known Holdings. They have created a platform, an ecosystem to bring resources to Blacks and people of color so they can scale their business.
Even though we've had several examples of African Americans and other people of color being able to be successful, we still aren't seeing the mass level of us being lifted up.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
This is your boy, Earthquake.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
The third week of Donald Trump's hush money trial ended with testimony from former aide Hope Hicks. The former White House communication director testified that she traveled with him, quote, almost every day, end quote, during his campaign. The prosecution's questioning focuses on the infamous Access Hollywood tape. Hope Hicks recounted her reaction to learning of the Hollywood tape. Hicks recounted her reaction to learning of the tape through an email from former Washington Post reporter David Farenthold. Hicks said she was very concerned about the tape, though she had only read a transcript of it at the time. She forwarded Farenthold's email to others in the Trump campaign, urging that they need to hear the tape. Hope Hicks told the jury that Trump downplayed the conversation heard on the tape. Trump faces 34 felony charges related to allegedly falsifying business records in an attempt to hide hush money payments made to Karen McDougal and adult film star Stormy Daniels while he campaigned for president in 2016. I'm going to go to my panel on this, but I just have to say, I covered this story here in Detroit for 910 AM WFDF. I was a talk show host on the station at the time, and I actually was the first one on the station to talk about this story. And when I first heard this story, the first article I saw about this was from rawstory.com. I said, this sounds like a election interference case where money is being paid to keep a story out of the headlines so it won't impact the election results. I'm going to go to Teresa on this, who is a communication strategist. So Teresa, what's your take on, this is conclusion of day 10 of this hush money / election interference trial. What's your take so far?
Well, I think everything's coming out to the light. Trump has done these deeds, and now we're finally facing the light. I think on the communication side of things, the Trump campaign is probably in an uproar right now. Every day that Trump is in court, Joe Biden is out, on the campaign trail. He's meeting with families. He's talking to unions. He's making speeches. He's doing his job as the president of the United States. And so, as we get into the weeds of it, now we're back at Stormy Daniels in the case, but having, Hope Hicks, who's, amongst other Trump individuals who's been a part of the case, has tried to redeem themselves in name and has been working on doing various commentary on other broadcast platforms. But we're seeing that, it's kind of like the red light was on the wall. And so she wanted to do, her job in the comm space to let them know, like, hey, you might want to listen to the details of this because we're not being fed all of it. That way you can make and process the right communication strategy. So she was doing her job, but I also think she don't really know what she signed up for. And so she was trying to give the heads up. Now she's on the stand trying to tell everybody else, hey, you might want to, help us along here and listen to the full thing yourself.
Absolutely. And one person who has been spilling the beans on basically everything that's been going on is Michael Cohen as well, who was Trump's fixer, as Michael Cohen describes himself. So Cameron, what's your take on this? And you were a senior advisor in the White House as well. I take it was the Obama administration, right? I think you're muted. I can't hear Cameron.
I hope it wasn't the Trump administration.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Both in the Biden White House and on the Biden 2020 Harris campaign. I was actually. Yeah, we were
the Trump
dealing
campaign.
with
Wasn't the Trump White House. I just want to make sure everybody knows that. Okay,
I'm sorry. I don't know who came in to do that. No, I would say this. I think we're getting closer to the actual crime. I know this is good theater, good TV, and people are just trying to there's been a lot of interest in tuning in, but I think I don't want the theatrics to get lost here, that a crime was committed, that they did falsify records. I mean, they had over 34 counts against Trump just on this hush money trial alone. And I also don't want to downplay and don't want the media or people to downplay the seriousness of a crime such as this. But I think having a Hope Hicks, who was admittedly and as one of the most closest advisors to the president during the campaign season and during that, to be able to fully come forth and testify. I mean, it's just lining up time and time again that Trump's complete disregard for the law, Trump's complete disregard for the authorities, or even election laws and how to move his money and so forth. Like that, it's lining up. But I just really hope that it's not lost on the American people, or as they may hope, take what comes from this trial, and then that impacts how they decide to vote in the fall. That, like, we literally have a full-blown criminal who is admitted to more criminal acts that he wants to do in the future on trial for president. So to that point, I'm really glad, and I've really been tuned in every day on this.
Okay, excellent. And also we know that Judge Merchan hit Donald Trump with a $9,000 violation for violating the gag order. According to NBC News today, Donald Trump paid that on Thursday. The $9,000 fine. He used a cashier's check, paying one amount of $2,000 and another of $7,000, and it was paid to the court clerk. I'm not sure how many pairs of those ugly gold sneakers he had to sell, or how many of those Trump Bibles that he's never read. He should start reading the 10 Commandments. I'm not sure how many of those he had to sell to raise this $9,000. But you know, this is, I think this is a clear line in the sand drawn by Judge Juan Merchan, that if you cross this line, there are going to be consequences, and you can end up sitting in jail, whether it's an hour, whether it's a day, whether it's a week. What are your thoughts on this, Teresa?
Yeah, I mean, we all should be following the law, especially those who aspire to run for the president of the United States. You know, I'm always interested in the talking points that the team comes out with. You know, we've heard that this has been a witch hunt, when really it's only a witch hunt if you didn't commit these crimes, which you did, right? You did pay Stormy Daniels off. You did pay, you know, Michael Cohen off. He was your fixer. And now that people are doing a tell-all, and because Michael Cohen didn't get his attorney general position, they're all out for blood. So it is what it is. You don't take care of your people. Right. You commit crimes, you know, and then you want to run for public office where your job is to serve the people with integrity, then this is what happens. So if you have to pay the fines, right, if you have to, you know, go to court, if you have to be, you know, you're the most famous person in the U.S. and probably internationally, license holder in terms of their name, Trump name being a household brand. And right, you just we have to make a mark, and I think in history, and I think we are doing it with this case. So whatever it may look like in terms of election cycle, I think we got to keep the pressure up, you know, hold people accountable and show them that this is not the right way for us to govern in the United States of America.
Absolutely. Well, the reason why I would call it a witch hunt is because they keep finding witches. Roland Martin Unfiltered will be right back here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Dr. Greg Carr, and coming up on the next Black Table, thinking about the Black freedom movement in a global way. Dr. John Monroe joins us to discuss his book, The Anti-Colonial Front, which maps the social justice movement in the United States and its impact internationally, from Asia to Africa, and how movements like anti-communism were used to slow down racial equality, like critical race theory today.
Critical race theory today, communism back then, that's essentially mobilized to shut down any challenges to a given system of power.
Connecting the civil rights movement to colonialism on the next Black Table, exclusively here on the Black Star Network.
Grow your business or career with Grow with Google's wide range of online courses, digital training, and tools. Gain in-demand job skills with flexible online training programs designed to put you on the fast track to jobs in high-growth fields. No experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace. Complete the online certificate program on your own terms. Stand out to employers, get on a path to in-demand jobs, and connect with top employers who are currently hiring. Take one professional career certificate program or all 6. Earn a Google Career Certificate to prepare for a job in a high-growth field like data analytics, project management, UX design, cybersecurity, and more. All professional career certificate programs must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Scan the QR code to complete the application. There are 1,000 scholarships available. Grow with Google and J. Hood and Associates. Be job ready and qualify for in-demand jobs.
Carl Payne pretended to be Roland Martin. Holla!
You ain't got to wear black and gold every damn place, okay? Ooh, I'm an alpha, yay. All right, you're 58 years old. It's over.
And you are now watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable.
Earlier this week, during a Wisconsin rally, Trump alluded that the 2020 election was stolen and said that if reelected, he would give, quote, police their power back, unquote, and give them immunity.
We're going to rebuild our cities and become a beacon of hope, safety, beauty, better than ever before. We're going to rebuild our cities. We're going to work with Democrat mayors who are running in every instance, running them, Democrat mayors and many Democrat governors and we're going to rebuild our cities. We're going to bring them back like they used to be. We're going to make them safe places again. We're going to give our police their power back, and we're going to give them immunity from prosecution, so they're not prosecuted for doing their job. We'll take over the horribly run capital of our country, Washington, D.C., and clean up, renovate, and rebuild our capital city so that it's no longer a nightmare of murder and crime, but rather it will become the most beautiful capital anywhere in the world. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto the lives of our children. I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or mask mandate. I will fully uphold our under siege Second Amendment. It is under siege like never before. We will protect innocent life, and we will restore free speech rapidly. And I will do something that's very important to me, maybe more important to me than any other person in the world. I will secure our elections, because you know what happened in 2012. Our goal will be one-day voting with paper ballots, proof of citizenship, and voter ID.
All right, so I'm going to go to my panel on this to deal with this fantasy land that Donald Trump lives in. I'm going to go to you first, Cameron. What are some of your thoughts on these comments of Trump and his plan for 2025?
I'm actually quite scared. I mean, quite frankly, I'm scared. To have a major party candidate literally with a complete disdain for the Constitution, literally telling us and putting it in plain sight his focus on an authoritarian rule. When you start talking about giving police immunity, that's one thing. But when these also a Time magazine article came out this week where he really outlined some of the horrifying things he plans to do once he's in office, kind of using the National Guard and the military as his own personal police force, the ability to say cut federal funding from schools. He's using all the dog whistles and all the things that he hoped gins his base up with transgender and critical race theory, and then all the things that he plans to do in terms of cutting aid and funding and help overseas. Like, not only would America really be in trouble, like the world will be in trouble. We have been a pillar of democracy, and through right or wrong through this country's history, we've at least had presidents who at least on the front lines and things they would say have a respect for our laws of the land. But to literally be able to utilize and say, like, hey, I'm going to use police, National Guard, military to mass deport folks, to quench any uprising. And you mentioned earlier in the show, he might not even want to get out of office again.
He's not going to want to leave office. He didn't want to leave the first time. Okay, he didn't want to leave the first time. So, Donald Trump talks about crime rising in America, but that's actually contrary to the actual data. NBCnews.com, as well as other major news outlets, have an article from March 19th, 2024. The U.S. crime rate is still dropping, FBI data shows. And we see that the national crime rate has been declining each year that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have been in office. And very quickly, and I'm coming to you next, Teresa, it says the new fourth quarter numbers showed a 13% decline in murder in 2023 from 2022, a 6% decline in reported violent crime, and a 4% decline in reported property crime. That's based on data from around 13,000 law enforcement agencies policing about 82% of the U.S. population that provided the FBI with data through November. Go ahead, Teresa, because for those who think that things cannot get worse, okay, yes, they will under Donald Trump, a second Trump administration.
Yeah, this is very troubling. I agree with Cameron when you say we are in a very scared state, especially with these fantasies. There's one thing when it talks to the base, right? And what is that base? The base, as I always find a bit scarier than Donald Trump itself, is the thing that we are working for in some way, shape, or form. So we don't know who really the base is, right? These are these hitting backdoor conversations with these individuals who feel this way. And so as we, as a public, try to push for equality across LGBTQIA, transgender rights, black and brown people rights, all the equality in the real estate, all of these things that make our country actually great. We have someone that is saying we're going to go back to a time where, we were in charge, and as we already know who that is. And so, and our guest earlier kind of already alluded to, it's bigger than, Joe Biden and his election. Yes, we need to vote for him, but here are the reasons why. The reasons why is because we are a united states, and that united feel and that united firm to keep violence down, to actually look at the stats. That's why we're paying for it, right? Taxpayer dollars are paying for these reports. So if we don't believe the reports and we're only believing poll numbers, what are we saying that we're doing? We're doing mismanagement of leadership. So I think there is one, again, we only have a couple months here till November to really get across the finish line with the right elected leaders, and with someone that is, quote, on trial, fighting for their own freedom, fighting, to financially get themselves out of debt. It's right. Not right. Them, it's their team around them. That's something that we all need to really be a participant in terms of coming to an election and making the right decision.
Absolutely. Well, we look at the executive order that President Joe Biden did May 25th, 2022 on policing, the second anniversary of the killing of George Floyd, which dealt with policing at the federal level, because based upon the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, states' rights, the majority of the control over policing is not at the federal level, but it's at the state level. But something that the Department of Justice can do is investigate the patterns and practices of police departments, which is something taking place now under the Biden-Harris administration, which basically stopped under the Trump administration. There was only one investigation into police departments under the Trump administration. And we know when Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, Donald Trump's first attorney general, became attorney general, one of the first things he did was to stop the investigations in police departments. And he said they were going to take basically a hands-off approach to policing because it was demoralizing police to have these investigations. He said we need to take a hands-off approach. And when you hear Donald Trump talking about immunity for police officers, this falls right in line with that. Go ahead, Cameron, with your, I'm sorry, I went to Cameron already. I went to Teresa. Lastly, I got to tell people, read this fact sheet. I've talked about it before. Fact sheet: the Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country. It's at whitehouse.gov. It's a 36-page document that shows you policy by policy how the policies of the Biden-Harris administration are helping the African-American community. Now, you compare that to what Trump and his cronies are saying, and you look at the 4 years of the Donald Trump administration and compare the two. You don't have to take my word for it. Proper documentation ends all conversation. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
A lot of y'all have been asking me about the pocket squares that we have available on our website. You see me rocking the Shabori pocket square right here. It's all about looking different. And look, summertime is coming up. Y'all know, I keep trying to tell fellas, change your look, please. You can't wear athletic shoes every damn wear. So if you're putting on linen suits, if you're putting on some summer suits, have a whole different look. The reason I like this particular pocket square, the Shabori, is because it's sort of like a flower and looks looks pretty cool here versus the traditional boring silk pocket squares. But also I like being a little different as well. So this is why we have these custom-made feather pocket squares on the website as well. My sister actually designed these after a few years ago. I was in this battle with Steve Harvey at Essence, and I saw this at a St. Jude fundraiser. I saw this feather pocket square, and I said, well, I got some ideas. So I hit her, and she sent me about 30 different ones. And so this completely changes your look. Now, some of you men out there, I had some dudes say, oh, man, I can't wear that. Well, if you ain't got swagger, that's not my problem. But if you're looking for something different to spruce up your look, fellas, ladies, if y'all looking to get your man a good gift, I've run into brothers all across the country with the feather pocket squares saying, see, check mine out. And so it's always good to see them. And so this is what you do. Go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. You can order Shibori pocket squares or the custom-made pocket squares. Now, for the Shiboris, we're out of a lot of the different colors, and I think we're down to about 200 or 300. So you want to get your order in as soon as you can, because here's what happened. I got these several years ago, and the Japanese company signed a deal with another company, and I bought them before they signed that deal, and so I can't get access to any more from the company in Japan that makes them. And so get yours now. So come summertime, when I see y'all at Essence, y'all could be looking fly with the Shibori pocket square or the custom-made pocket square. Again, RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. Go there now.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker. Truly proud of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder on Disney+. And you're watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
Zamaya Strickland has been missing from Pigeon Forge, Tennessee since March 22nd, 2024. The 16-year-old is 5 feet 1 inches tall, weighs 125 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Zamaya Strickland should call the Pigeon Forge, Tennessee Police Department at 865-453-9063. Arizona's legislature repealed the state's 1864 near-total abortion ban. Now it's up to Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs to sign it into law. 3 weeks after the state Supreme Court revived the law, 2 Republican senators voted with the chamber's 14 Democrats to advance the repeal of the state's 160-year-old near-total abortion ban. The Civil War era 1864 law prohibited all abortions except in cases when, quote, it is necessary to save, end quote, a pregnant person's life, carried a possible prison sentence of 2 to 5 years for abortion providers, carried a possible prison sentence of 2 to 5 years for abortion providers. The legislation clears the way for the state's 2022 15-week limit to remain state law. However, that does not include exceptions for rape and incest. So I'm going to go to my panel on this, and as a historian, you know, this goes back to 1864, during the Civil War, when slavery was still sanctioned by the U.S. Constitution and still legal in many states. I'm going to start with you, Teresa. So what are your thoughts on this law being repealed, and how did you feel when it went into effect in the first place?
I felt that, you know, the woman's voice was not being heard. I felt like men were making choices on behalf of women's rights. I felt like there was a setback. You know, I wasn't alive during the first Roe v. Wade, you know, but I am alive and kicking when the decision was reversed. And, you know, speaking to those that are, you know, in this generation, is daunting. You know, we never thought this day would come. But again, when we see these rollbacks of our rights, our voice being stripped, right, we have to look at, you know, what to do on our part for, you know, in terms of having this happen. We elected a Donald Trump. We've allowed him and Republicans, extreme Republicans, to, you know, maneuver the Supreme Court. And so it's really up to us to get back on track, to take the next 6 months to look at the repeals, to look at the stripping of our voices and get it back.
Absolutely. And, you know, this was 1864. So this was before African-American men got the right to vote, which was in 1870 due to the 15th Amendment. This is before white women got the right to vote in 1920, the 19th Amendment. And you see men controlling, and some men have a need to control women's bodies. But this is, I think, is more than just about abortion rights. This is about women's health care. So Cameron, coming to you, what are your thoughts on this repeal, and what role do you think that women's reproductive rights and women's health care will play in the 2024 presidential election, and as well as the down ballot elections?
I mean, they're coordinated. They're playing with fire because they're gonna mess around and lose a whole slate of elections in that state of Arizona. I mean, Arizona is considered a battleground state, and it's on the path to victory for whether it's Trump or Biden. Very critical there. But we've seen how this has actually played out in 2022 and in 2023 when reproductive rights has been front and center ever since the Dobbs decision. All these various states that are trying to push really regressive, extremely restrictive laws, not just on abortion and a woman's right to choose, but also on health care, and then criminalizing and throwing doctors in jail and women in jail over. It's just it's ridiculous. But they're off on this. I mean, even Trump himself wouldn't even support this ban and say, hey, I'm not for a national ban, but states should do their own things. But he even said some of the laws that came out of Arizona are a little too strict. And if Trump thinks they're too bad, I mean, what are we doing here? So they're at risk. And I say the Republican Party, even if this wasn't a party decision, this came through the courts, those courts are going to lose Republicans up and down the ballot from the Senate all the way down to these local elections, because we've seen how not only women will galvanize, minorities will galvanize, men will galvanize, because that is a fundamental right for a woman to choose. No matter how you feel kind of about abortion, it's still a woman's choice in her body. And then also the healthcare implications, the banning of Planned Parenthoods and clinics where women don't, it's not just to go to get an abortion, they go and get basic health care. And Arizona is a desert state, so it's not even, healthcare options are not as frequent for so many people who live in the more rural and desert areas of Arizona. So for you to limit those healthcare options and for people just to be healthy, they are at extreme risk of losing a ton of elections on the Republican side there. So absolutely.
And Donald Trump's words about taking credit for getting Roe versus Wade banned are, I think, coming back to haunt him. In Baltimore, the body of a fifth person who was missing after the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge more than a month ago has been recovered. The Key Bridge Response Unified Command identified the victim, 49-year-old Miguel Angel Luna Gonzalez of Glen Burnie, Maryland. He was one of the 6 roadwork crew members who fell to their deaths on March 26, 2024, when a container ship lost power and crashed into one of the bridge's supporting columns. The 6th worker, Jose Minor Lopez, has not been found. The workers were all Latino immigrants who came to the U.S. from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. I'm going to go to my panel quickly on this. We're going to start with Teresa. So Teresa, when this incident happened in March 2024, you had Fox News and a lot of conservatives talking about problems with DEI. And then we found out who the people were who were killed. These were Latino immigrants to the country. So then, issues about migration and illegal immigrants, things, all this started coming up. Okay, what are your thoughts on this here?
So I think there is a concerted effort that Baltimore is actually doing to make sure, residents are, safe, in terms of like getting the bridge up to par so we can start doing our commutes the way we need to be and continue that economic wellness. But I do think, it's a misfortunate incident. So, we have another body that's recovered in Baltimore that we don't know, right? But we have the technology to figure out what we can do better and what we can do next. But as of right now, it's unfortunate, we keep finding these things out, but gratefully we're finding it out with technology.
Right. Cameron, what are your thoughts on this incident here and the finding of the bodies and where we go from here as well, especially when we talk about infrastructure?
Yeah, I would say first, this is a human issue. People lost their lives. Mm-hmm. Immigrant, no immigrant, however they got to this country, this person was put in a hard day's work. Fault of their own, they lost their life. So I'm actually thankful, as a man of faith, like I couldn't imagine what his family, wherever they are going through, not even being able to recover the body. So I'm just thankful there. I think just like sometimes we got to get out of this hole is this immigration. We're quick to politicize everything, and like people have just lost their lives, and this was a unfortunate tragedy. We're going through the investigation to see if there was any neglect or any wrongfulness on the part of the company of the boat that ran into the bridge. And I think as it relates to infrastructure, this was another incident, and where I think governance to respond to a tragedy like this, where the city, the governor, the federal government all quickly came in to not only to investigate, but to pledge dollars to get this major bridge and thoroughway fixed. But again, I think sometimes we are just so quick to politicize and try to turn everything into a soundbite. Like, people just lost their lives. We got to have a little humanity here. And again, thankful that their family at least can know their loved one and be able to properly bury and be able to hopefully to grieve in peace a little bit now.
Absolutely. Roland Martin Unfiltered will be right back right here on the Black Star Network.
First, President Barack Obama's road to the White House. We got about 500 copies of the book available. And so this actually is all of the coverage of the 2008 election. But the other thing is this here. I talked to folks like Malik Yoba, Hill Harper, Erica Alexander, Kevin Lau, Spike Lee, Tatiana Ali. But there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff in here as well, where I talked about some of the stuff that went down at CNN. Also, when you go through here, a lot of the photos that you see in here, photos that I actually shot, photos that were my time at CNN. And so what I decided to do, because one, I published the book and I own it myself, is that so I said, you know what, I'm going to slash the price to $10. And so we're going to have shipping and handling $5.99. I'm going to personally autograph every copy. I'm not reprinting the book. So once we are sold out of these 500, that's it. They're gone. So you can go to RolandSMartin.com/the-first to get a copy of this book. Everybody who orders this book through the website, not on Amazon, only through RolandSMartin.com, I will personally autograph and mail you a copy of this book. It's all of the covers, the actual interviews that I did with him. And just to show you, of course, when it came out, there's actually even in here the interviews that I did with him and Michelle Obama, which won TV One Cable Network's his first 2 NAACP Image Awards. And so all of that for $10. Shipping and handling is $5.99. So go to RolandSMartin.com the first and order your copy today.
I'm Dr. Greg Carr, and coming up on the next Black Table, thinking about the Black freedom movement in a global way. Dr. John Monroe joins us to discuss his book, The Anti-Colonial Front, which maps the social justice movement in the United States and its impact internationally, from Asia to Africa, and how movements like anti-communism were used to slow down racial equality, like critical race theory today.
Critical race theory today, communism back then, this essentially mobilized to shut down any challenges to a given system of power.
Connecting the civil rights movement to colonialism on the next Black Table, exclusively here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. I don't play Sammy, but I could. Or I don't play Obama, but I could. I don't do Stallone, but I could do all that. And I am here with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
The second quarter came in below estimates of 240,000 jobs for April. The workforce saw 175,000 jobs created. The overall unemployment rate increased by 0.1 of a percentage point. Some good news for African Americans. The overall unemployment rate dropped as it did for both Black men and women. Morgan Harper from the American Economic Liberties Project is here to break down these numbers. Well, Morgan, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Usually I'm on the panel talking to you, but now I'm guest hosting for Roland. So put in perspective.
You're the host now.
Well, Beyonce said she was going to upgrade me, so I guess this is it. But,
that's good. Congrats.
But put in perspective for us what these numbers mean and why did we see the unemployment rate for African-American men and women go down April 2024?
Yeah, this was interesting. So, the overall number, as you said, was lower than estimated at 175,000. But I do think it's important to keep in mind that the numbers we've been seeing for the few months I've been on the show talking of 200,000, that's very high. That's not normal. And so still having 175,000 jobs created is a good thing. Now, in terms of the unemployment rate, this is interesting to see this divergence between the overall unemployment, as you said, going up, but very slightly and still historically really low, still being under 4%, but that we're finally seeing some drops in Black unemployment for both men and women encouraging. And I think what this means is we have to look at, okay, where are the jobs that are being created, which sector? This month, we saw that there was very little job growth in the leisure, hospitality jobs, kind of like hotel, but a lot of growth in healthcare, the healthcare industry and education continue to drive a lot of the job growth we're seeing. So I would have to think that this month, given that we're seeing Black unemployment drop, it must mean that a lot of the jobs that we're getting are in the healthcare and education sectors.
Okay. Now, I know I was reading an article from NBCnews.com today about the April job numbers, and it says the evidence can be found in, well, it talks about America's job market increasingly appears to be splitting into two tracks. Economists say alongside a steady demand for skilled workers and a flagging interest in hiring more, quote unquote, knowledge-based professionals. And they talk about how the evidence can be found in the data which shows a higher unemployment rate for professional and business service workers. That's bad for people like me with business degrees, and a lower unemployment rate for people who work in manufacturing. Can you talk about that for a minute? And how does this relate to African Americans and the African American unemployment rate?
Yeah, I think there is a different economic story depending on what kind of jobs you're doing and, socioeconomic status. And so, for example, we're starting to see a lot more layoffs in some of these professional service tech sectors, but overall layoffs are not very high across the economy. And so, the fact that we're seeing the drop in unemployment among Black men and women suggests that perhaps there's a larger proportion of our population that's maybe not in those professional service jobs, but are in the other jobs where we're seeing growth, like I mentioned before, in the healthcare, education sectors. And so another data point that we saw this month is manufacturing is totally flat. And so even as we see maybe we have pretty good participation there. It doesn't seem like that's driving growth. But another reason why we probably aren't seeing as much growth in that sector is because interest rates continue to be high. For manufacturing jobs to go up, those are kind of like higher cost industries. There needs to be a lot of equipment purchase. And in this interest rate environment, it's unlikely that a lot of business, or not even unlikely, the data bears out, that it doesn't seem like businesses are making that decision. They're kind of hanging steady. And so we're not seeing the employment growth there. So, to summarize, what do we do with that? I mean, I do think that there's an ongoing need for us to continue to diversify the types of jobs that we're in a position to get. Even if we're seeing layoffs within the professional sector, those are sectors where you're going to be earning more, the opportunity for wealth building. And so we need to continue to focus on making sure people are on a track, whether it's through the proper education or credentialing, that's going to get them into management positions and be able to, see those wealth building opportunities.
All right. Well, I think this is, I think it's the 40th straight month of private sector job growth. Either 39 or 40, and it's the 27th consecutive month that the unemployment rate was below 4%. I'm going to go to my panel quickly on this. Let's start with Teresa. Teresa, do you have any questions or comments for Morgan Harper?
Yeah, I just want you to, one, Morgan, thank you so much for those numbers, because it definitely is important as we figure out why some of the Black unemployment rates are happening. Is your sets also with those who are entering back into the workforce, like if they were formerly incarcerated? Just curious.
The data doesn't really get into that, so it's hard to say. But that would be something interesting to look into. And I think that's where we would need organizations that focus on serving that population to probably do some of their own analysis. But I haven't really seen that kind of like national analysis of looking specifically at the reentry population. I mean, another stat I mentioned that's not directly connected to that, but just in terms of like what's driving these numbers, is we have a very high labor participation rate by women. Like 78% of women are participating in the labor force. And so that's hasn't always been the case. That's something interesting for us to watch. And then again, a policy I know we've talked about before to support that labor participation is we have to have affordable childcare and continue to make sure that women, everyone, but especially to maintain that kind of high labor rate participation, we need to have some childcare behind that, given the number of women who are working and have children as well.
All right. Thank you, Teresa. And this is the 40th straight month of private sector job growth. So just so for all those thinking that Republicans are better handling the economy, the evidence does not show that. Cameron, you have a question for Morgan?
I do. Thank you again for sharing that information, Morgan. While we're seeing these numbers in generally overall positive, but we've seen inflation like going sky high and rocketing, and people are now feeling like they not only need a job, but maybe need two jobs, or the quality of the job and the wage of the job, or the jobs they're getting allow them to really have a livable wage and keep up. Can you do the numbers really dive into the types of jobs, or the types of jobs that African Americans are getting and people are getting, or if these are just jobs, or are these jobs that are or also reflective of maybe people getting more than one job? Because when you see these jobs numbers and jobless rates numbers, I think they're overall generally positive. But we know that when African Americans, when Black folks, when America gets a cold, we get the flu. And so sometimes I want to make sure our people are actually getting good jobs and jobs that can actually help them advance in America.
Absolutely. And, I was referencing this a little bit before. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, I don't think that because of the industries that aren't seeing as much growth, manufacturing, some of the professional services, I mean, those are really career type of industries. It's very much possible that the industry that's leading in the job growth for this month, healthcare, for example, I think the experts say, I mean, a lot of that is home healthcare aides. Those are not necessarily jobs that are going to give you a lot of benefits. There's not necessarily a lot of job security, and that might not be putting our people on a road to, more wealth building and security overall. But it does seem like we might be overrepresented there, given that our unemployment's dropping when overall unemployment's going up. And this was the sector that drove the growth this month. All of that to be said, though, is it just 1 month? And, as I mentioned a lot when I come on the show, we can't interpret too much from just 1 month of data. We have to look at the trends. But this is definitely something for us to continue to pay attention to. And then you're absolutely right on prices. I mean, I think as a lot of us know, this administration, since the pandemic, there's been a big focus on trying to lower prices, get the inflation rate to 2%. It's still like about a percentage point off from that, but a lot lower than what other countries are seeing. I do think we have to continue to keep in mind the pandemic was this once-in-a-century event that really drove up prices in a way that nobody really expected, exposed all of these vulnerabilities in the supply chain and in the monopolies. And we have to also acknowledge there are a lot of big, I just lost one of my earbuds. There's a lot of big corporations that have been taking advantage of these once-in-a-century economic conditions to try to make as much money off of us as possible. I mean, an example there, and this is a great one because gas prices, right? That's an area where a lot of people are like, what could we possibly do to control gas prices? It's in the Middle East, it's international, it's complicated. And then this week, there was a case that came out through the Federal Trade Commission that showed executives of oil companies were colluding with OPEC to keep gas prices high. So it's very typical to just try to wave all this off. It's complicated, the economy, who knows, so many factors, when sometimes it's just people that are taking advantage of us, keeping these prices high and make it really difficult to get by with just one job. We need the government to expose this, to enforce the law when people are breaking it, and try to bring these prices down. And that has to be a top priority ongoing and moving forward.
So agree.
Absolutely.
So agree. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cameron. I had a follow-up question for you, Morgan. Looking at the article from the Washington Post today dealing with the April job numbers, employers added 175,000 jobs in April as labor market growth slows. On page 2, it says the rate of joblessness for African Americans, which spiked last month, which would be April 2024, well, the previous month, March 2024 numbers. Yeah, raising concern among policymakers, fell back to 5.6% between March and April 2024. Black workers tend to be among the most vulnerable to weaknesses in the labor market. Last year, 2023, unemployment for Black workers fell to an all-time low of 4.8% amid an exceptionally tight labor market. So can you talk about the weaknesses in the labor market that African Americans are most vulnerable to, and what are 1 or 2 or maybe 3 policies that can be implemented to address that weakness and that vulnerability?
Well, this is what we were talking about a little bit before. I mean, these numbers seem to suggest that there are vulnerabilities in the economy, in layoffs and maybe job growth slowing down. But it seems to be in more of the professional services and tech kind of sectors, right? And so that's suggesting that perhaps we're not as involved in or as overly represented in those industries. I do think that's something for us to pay attention to. I mean, for example, it doesn't seem like the layoffs now are hitting the sectors that they usually do. When you think of the economy slowing down, people are losing the job, you think that it's going to be retail, you think it's going to be leisure and hospitality. Some of these more like, how would I say, like not necessarily permanent of positions that would be the first to go. And that's not what we're seeing right now. So in that way, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of cause for alarm. The other stat that is a positive stat that we're seeing in these numbers is that the gap between Black and white employment is very narrow. It's usually about double, but we're actually seeing that's narrowing to 1.6 in terms of the difference. In terms of the income level. So this is another positive development. In terms of policies to address this, I'm going to emphasize again, it's just 1 month. And so we have to kind of continue to see, this is a very volatile economy. People haven't been that great at predicting what exactly is going on month to month. And so it's kind of like easy does it. But we know that there are some basic things that need to happen for us to be okay. We need the economy to continue to grow. It is growing. We need to make sure that we're addressing these prices, like the last question that we were just talking about, that is going to hit us more acutely because we don't have the backup of, generational wealth, maybe the savings as much. And so it's very important that our wages are going as far as they can and bring the prices down and enable people to save. And then cutting out the exploitation in the economy that does hit people who are maybe, again, not as affluent. And that involves law enforcement and making sure that we are having, markets. For example, I mean, here's another one I know we've talked about before as well. The grocery prices, trying to make sure that we don't have mergers that are going to raise food prices as well. This all needs to come together to create a situation where we can lead financially stable lives. And we still are on the road to getting there.
Right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Morgan. Thank you so much, Morgan. Thanks for coming back on Roland Martin Unfiltered to explain that to us. Earlier today, President Joe Biden awarded.
Hold on one second.
Okay, we have Roland Martin here at the White House. Hello, Roland.
Morgan, don't go anywhere. I literally just stepped back into the studios at the White House for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I do have a question for you, Morgan. So, Vice President Kamala Harris kicked off this Black Economic Empowerment Tour in Atlanta on Monday. She's going to be in Detroit on Monday. I'm going to be traveling with her to Detroit. And one of the things that I've said to them that they also have to be talking about here, and that is you can't just be talking about contracts in Black-owned businesses. You have to bring it home as to how their policies have impacted poor and low-income folks as well, and how their lives would be different. So a lot of these people keep saying, oh, my goodness, rising food prices and housing, things along those lines, which is important. But they also have to make sure to explain to people that the billions that were spent during COVID, that money is not going to be spent again, and Republicans want to attack every program that has actually benefited the most vulnerable folks in the country. I think they have to do a much better job of connecting those dots and tying that into the economy and the election. Your thoughts?
I agree. And a lot of people just aren't aware of the developments that have happened over the past 3 years from the administration. Part of that is just the media not necessarily covering it. I mean, I don't know if any of you have, I should say mainstream media. I know you're doing your part, Roland, to try to do a better job of having broader coverage. But if you tune into a lot of these typical stations over the last couple of weeks, I don't know what you're hearing about, but I'm only hearing about protests and Trump. And they're not telling the story of what the good things are that are happening in the economy. Here's an example. Last week, the Federal Trade Commission just banned non-compete agreements. And these are things that oftentimes we think, oh, those are just like high-wage workers. You sign one of those to protect trade secrets or proprietary information. No, increasingly, a lot of low, middle-income folks have been locked in non-competes, people who work in beauty salons, even at fast food restaurants, that if you were trying to go across the street and work at another fast food restaurant, you wouldn't be able to do that legally because you had to sign a non-compete to take on that job. That isn't just some esoteric thing. That means that if you're trying to go somewhere and bargain for a higher wage, you wouldn't be able to do that. The federal government just released a rule banning those agreements moving forward. And they estimate that that's going to, over the next 10 years, put $400 billion of wages back into our pockets, into workers, and also enable people to start businesses. So not just have a job, but try to start a business, build wealth, accelerate that wealth building process. That had never been done before. That wasn't contemplated by a lot of people even 5 years ago. And that happened in this administration over the past 3 years. That's the story that we need to be telling. And there's just so many examples like that. But I think especially when we look at some of these bigger legislative packages that got through, they will take a little bit of time to show that impact. So, looking at the Inflation Reduction Act, creating the incentives to invest in more of the climate industry, environmentally friendly industries, these manufacturing jobs. Like we were saying, we're still not seeing a lot of growth in those jobs because probably more of the interest rates, but the infrastructure is being built to see that benefit coming. Now, the key there, though, is having stakeholders on the ground. And that's why I'm so glad you're saying this economic tour is happening. You're a part of it, because we need to make sure that we have local elected officials on the ground that are feeling the pressure to ensure that the way these programs and policies and the tax credits get implemented are actually hitting our community, that we're getting into the workforce development programs that are going to put you on the road to a trade that will be able to earn over $100,000. That doesn't just happen by creating the program. We need to make sure that we have that pipeline and people on the ground know that that is their responsibility to get to the implementation of these once in a generation policies and make sure that we see the economic benefit from that. And so, yeah, it's a story that we have to tell, and we're going to have to be telling for ourselves. And I'm happy to continue sharing it with you because time is of the essence, as we know. But anybody who's thinking that there hasn't been any changes over these last couple of years, we need to start talking, and please reach out to me because I am happy to walk you through all of the changes we've seen and the groundwork that's been laid for a lot more to come.
All right. Sounds great, Morgan. We always appreciate you joining us, breaking down these numbers every single month. Thanks a lot.
Good to see you. Good luck in Detroit.
All right, absolutely. Folks, as I said, on Monday, Vice President Kamala Harris travels to Detroit to give us an economic speech. I will be accompanying her. We actually thought the event was on Wednesday. I got some information. And so as I was going through the line with the president, Vice President, she said, so you on the trip on Monday, huh? And I'm like, where we going on Monday? And so we will be traveling with her again on Monday to Detroit. And so we will, of course, live stream her speech right here on the Black Star Network. I will be dropping in reports. I just got the notice, and we're going to be landing about 6:45. And so my goal is to be live. We'll be live at 6, but hopefully I will be able to quickly set up and go live at 7 o'clock from Andrews Air Force Base when we get back. So look forward to that coverage taking place on Monday. Got to go to break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Presidential Medal of Freedom ceremony at the White House. A lot of great folks that were honored, including Clarence B. Jones, lawyer and speechwriter for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers, posthumously honored, as well as so many others, including South Carolina Congressman Jim Clyburn. You'll hear from all three of them, the Evers family, when we come back. Don't forget, support us in what we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Folks, I keep telling y'all what's happening out here. You see Byron Allen's The Griot getting rid of all of their shows except one. You see what's happening with the rest of these black-owned media outlets. I was there. I'm telling you right now, there was nobody else black-owned who was there in the media press corps. We absolutely, positively have got to have black-owned media covering the issues that matter to us. That's what we have to have. And so your support is absolutely critical. We're fighting like crazy to get advertising dollars to sustain us. But I'm telling y'all, without y'all support, it wouldn't happen. Earlier today, I was sitting here signing checks and money orders and depositing those. And it was about $7,000 that came in. And I'm telling you right now, and just to put that in perspective, you're talking about if there are a couple of PAs on staff, that's paying for the salaries of 2 PAs. And so I try to explain to y'all what these things cost to put this thing in perspective, because the costs are real. Our expenses are about $195,000 per month when it comes to all the folks with the Black Star Network, the technical stuff, the studio, salaries, all those different things. And so those things matter. Listen, our team is a small staff, but doing a hell of a job covering the stuff that matters. So many people were stopping me at the White House, walking down the street, other places I go. And so folks are watching. They are paying attention. And so your support is critical. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal are Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. A lot of y'all have been asking me about the pocket squares that we have available on our website. You see me rocking the Shibori pocket square right here. It's all about looking different. And look, summertime is coming up. Y'all know, I keep trying to tell fellas, change your look, please. You can't wear athletic shoes every damn wear. So if you're putting on linen suits, if you're putting on some summer suits, have a whole different look. The reason I like this particular pocket square, the Shibori, is because it's sort of like a flower and looks pretty cool here versus the traditional boring silk pocket squares. But also I like being a little different as well. So this is why we have these custom-made feather pocket squares on the website as well. My sister actually designed these after a few years ago. I was in this battle with Steve Harvey at Essence, and I saw this at a St. Jude fundraiser. I saw this feather pocket square, and I said, well, I got some ideas. So I hit her, and she sent me about 30 different ones. And so this completely changes your look. Now, some of you men out there, I had some dudes say, oh man, I can't wear that. Well, if you ain't got swagger, that's not my problem. But if you're looking for something different to spruce up your look, fellas, ladies, if y'all looking to get your man a good gift, I've run into brothers all across the country with the feather pocket squares saying, see, check mine out. And so it's always good to see them. And so this is what you do. Go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. You can order Shibori pocket squares or the custom-made pocket squares. Now, for the Shiboris, we're out of a lot of the different colors, and I think we're down to about 200 or 300. So you want to get your order in as soon as you can, because here's what happened. I got these several years ago, and the Japanese company signed a deal with another company, and I bought them before they signed that deal, and so I can't get access to any more from the company in Japan that makes them. And so get yours now. So come summertime, when I see y'all at Essence, y'all could be looking fly with the Shibori pocket square or the custom-made pocket square. Again, RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. Go there now.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder Disney Plus, and I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
Folks, this afternoon at the White House, President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris honored a number of Americans who have contributed greatly to this country. It was a packed house as they celebrated the honorees there. I was a special guest, invited guest of Clarence B. Jones, who, of course, was a speechwriter for Dr. King, who helped him write the I Have a Dream speech, delivered on August 28, 1963. Other folks who were honored as well included the late Medgar Evers. Also honored was South Carolina Congressman Jim Clyburn, Michael Bloomberg, Pastor Gregory Boyle, also former Senator Elizabeth Dole, talk show host Phil Donahue, former Vice President Al Gore, also honored former Senator Secretary of State John Kerry, the late Senator Frank Lautenberg of New Jersey, Olympic swimmer Kathleen Ledecky, also the grandmother of Juneteenth, Opal Lee, Ellen Ochoa, who is, of course, director of NASA's renowned Johnson Space Center, also former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, Jane Rigby, who manages the James Webb Space Telescope, Teresa Romero, a champion for farm workers across the country, Judy Shepard, the mother of Andrew Shepard, the gay man who was brutally murdered 25 years ago, the late Jim Thorpe, one of the greatest athletes the country's ever seen, as well as actress Michelle Yeoh. They were among the honorees there. All right, folks, the president spoke about the honorees, and here's him speaking about Medgar Evers, Congressman Jim Clyburn, and Clarence B. Jones.
Today, we honor Medgar Evers and his family's pain and purpose, an Army veteran who worked tirelessly to end segregation in Mississippi, to deliver the promise of America to all Americans. A patriot was gunned down by the poison of white supremacy, but his spirit endures. Joining us is Medgar's daughter, Reena, who was 8 years old when she walked out and saw Daddy in the driveway. It was taken from her 4 days before Father's Day. She's here on behalf of the family and her mother, Merlee, who is unable to attend to travel today. I want to thank Merlee for her work to seek justice for Medgar and for forging her own civil rights legacy, not just Medgar's, her own civil rights legacy. In 2021, in this very room, I signed one of the most important laws of my presidency, making Juneteenth the first new federal holiday since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The first person I handed the pen to was Miss Opal Lee, a grandmother of the movement that helped make it possible. Juneteenth is a day of profound, profound weight and power to remember the original sin of slavery and the extraordinary capacity to emerge from the most painful moments with a better vision of ourselves. Miss Opal Lee made it her mission to make history, not erase it. We're a better nation because of you, Opal. Thank you. Born in Philadelphia, the cradle of our democracy, Dr. Clarence B. Jones wielded a pen as a sword and gave words to the movement that generated in freedom for millions of people. A speechwriter and lawyer for Dr. King, he helped define the enduring ideas included in The Dream that will be ever engraved in the ethos of America. Letting freedom ring, Dr. Clarence B. Jones. Thank you, Dr. Jones. De Tocqueville said, if America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. That's one of Jim Clyburn's favorite quotes. Always grounded in faith, family, and service, Jim has guided South Carolina and our country with a steady hand and an honest heart for over the last half-century. And I can say this without fear of contradiction. I would not be standing here as president making these awards were it not for Jim. I mean that sincerely. And neither of us would be standing here without Emily Clyburn, a woman of enormous character who we all miss. We're a great nation, Jim, because we have good people like Jim and Emily Clyburn. And our honorees today, all of them. My fellow Americans, Jim is the best. Thank you, Jim.
And of course, that's where the president speaks. And then there's the actual reading of their bios, as well as the president pinning each one of the living honorees with their Presidential Medal of Freedom, but then also handing the medal in a box to those who have passed away.
Opal Lee. 2 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freedom for enslaved Americans was finally enforced in Galveston, Texas, marking the nation's first Juneteenth. In that same town, Opal Lee was born 6 decades later. Growing up in a home that was burned down by a racist mob, she understood that history must never be erased. A teacher and advocate, she helped lead a movement with the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. More than 150 years after that day in Galveston, Texas, she stood next to another American president who followed her lead and made Juneteenth a federal holiday. The nation thanks Opal Lee, the grandmother of Juneteenth. Clarence B. Jones. The Philadelphia son of domestic workers and a former foster child, Clarence Jones became the wordsmith for a movement. A doer of the word, he was an Army soldier on the front lines in the battlefield and a civil rights lawyer on the front lines in the courtroom. Wise and unflinching, Clarence Jones's lyrical prose and prophetic life shows us all the enduring power of the idea of America. An advisor and speechwriter to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he helped write a new American Declaration to ensure we hold these truths to be self-evident, is forever linked with, I have a dream. James E. Clyburn. The son of a South Carolina preacher, Jim Clyburn is a beacon of moral clarity. A graduate of South Carolina State University, this student of history became a teacher and movement leader for a fairer and freer America. His dignity and decency are surpassed only by the love shared with his dear Emily, who marched with him and often ahead of him from classrooms to Congress. Through 3 decades in the House of Representatives, he has transformed the lives of millions of Americans by passing groundbreaking laws for all our families. Jim Clyburn is touched by the divine, and his march brings us closer to a more perfect union. Reena Evers, accepting on behalf of Medgar Wiley Evers. Medgar Evers was willing to face death to give America new life. An Army soldier, he fought for freedom abroad during World War II. At the height of the Civil Rights Movement, he was a crusading lawyer fighting for equality at home, investigating lynchings, organizing voter drives, and dismantling school segregation. The life he chose to live and the risks he took to do right are a reminder of the history he made and our charge to keep. In a life cut too short, Medgar Evers' legacy casts a ray of light on our quest to redeem the soul of our nation.
Well, the ceremony was over. There was a reception for all of the honorees and those in attendance. I did not catch up with Opal Lee. Y'all, she walked so fast. Did not get a chance to catch up with her. In fact, they did tell me Opal is going to have her Opal's Walk for Freedom, y'all. It's going to be on June 19th. She's walking in Dallas at 9 a.m. at the African American Museum of Dallas. And so Opal's going to be walking, y'all, on Juneteenth in Dallas. Here is, though, the brother who invited me as one of his guests, Clarence B. Jones. Clarence, how you feel with that around your neck?
Brother. Oh, I can younger and better. I never forget that my parents were domestic household servers. You understand? My mother was a maid and cook, and my father was a chauffeur and a gardener. And I'm standing here on my shoulder. You understand? I'll never forget that.
It's a great day.
Great day.
Well, I'm glad to be here to witness it.
I'm glad that you are here with me, my brother.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. That, of course, Clarence B. Jones. Then, of course, I had to have a little fun. We always joke around because he's an Omega, but he's also a fellow Archon. So here is Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. Here.
All right. You on tape, Daddy? Roland Martin got you on video.
All right, get a quick video. All right. How does that medal feel around your neck?
Well, it makes me feel like I need to live a little longer so I can prove myself deserving of it.
Knowing how you Omegas are, you probably gonna wear that on the golf course. You're gonna wear that to church. You know, you're gonna wear it. It's gonna match everything in your closet now, huh?
And the next time I see you on the golf course, I'll have it with me.
Right,
for sure.
Is that gonna be your new ball marker right here?
Not a chance.
Good luck, Charles.
Congratulations, Doc.
Thank you, and thanks for all your help along the way.
And the final video here, I caught up with Reena Evers.
I'm gonna stay on this side of that fence.
So, Reena, how do you feel?
Elated, emotional, in the best way. It's been a long time. but it's timely, especially in this time of this country, to honor so many wonderful people who have made such a fantastic difference in civil rights and human rights. To be with this panel is just amazing. And I just want to thank my father up above, but thank my father for who this medal is given, and my mother for her getting the medal too, because she was the backbone of him. I love her.
Teresa, I want to go to you first. When we think about, again, this is the highest honor in the country, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And we often hear black folks, we made America, as Dr. King often said, be true to what you put on paper. So when you look at many of the African-American honorees, it's folks who actually fought for this country to truly be a democracy, to respect the rule of law, and they put the work in. And so oftentimes that's who you actually see being honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
It's great to see. You know, in our generation, we don't see enough of it. I think, as I was stating earlier, you know, our civic lessons and our social studies lessons that we were getting in public school, we don't get to know these unsung heroes. And these individuals have literally paved the way, has crossed the bridge, has rewritten history, and now they're being acknowledged. You know, I think under the presidency of, you know, from Barack Obama to Biden, we have seen more and more of this celebration medal of freedom, but more so the purpose behind it and them explaining the right ways that we honor and celebrate them, and it's at the highest forms of government. So it's definitely appreciated, and congratulations to them.
A lot of the people who are often celebrated, Michael, are civil rights veterans. Folks who were involved in the Black freedom movement. Obviously, there are entertainers and sports figures who've been honored as well. But typically, when you look at folks who are African American, is those folks who made America be real when it comes to that battle over civil and human rights.
Absolutely, and they were holding America accountable for what they promised us. When you talk about Dr. King's speech, which has been renamed I Have a Dream, he talked about it was normalcy never again originally, then later canceled check. He talked about holding America accountable for a promissory note given to us in 1963, 100 years prior, 1863, 100 years prior. And then he said when we went to cash it at the bank, it was marked insufficient funds. So we look at these leaders fighting for rights for African Americans, which benefit everybody, but holding America accountable for what they put on paper. So this is extremely important.
Cameron, I think one of the reasons why it's also important is because they're also living history. It's obviously Medgar Evers was assassinated. It's great to see folks who are being honored, you know, while they are still here. And I think that, you know, that's really what's important. And I hope people also will go beyond just the quick bios that they read. Biden made a quip where he said that, hey, if I had to we had to cut this stuff down because if I had to really read these folks' history, we'll be here for 12 hours. I mean, we're talking about people, you know, who with real history, who've been there. In the case of Clarence Jones, he's 93 years old.
Yeah, there was some giants that were honored today, and I want to take a quick personal story. It really warmed my heart to see Miss Opal Lee. I had the chance to be at the White House and film on the digital team when we got to make content the day Miss Opal Lee came, when the president turned Juneteenth into a federal holiday, and just got to spend most of the day with her and like filming and talking and so forth. And like that woman is a ball of energy, so much history, but also so much presence and presence there. So to be able to see her rewarded along with a mentor of mine, Congressman Jim Clyburn, from my years on Capitol Hill, like I said, it really warmed my heart. And I love the exchange you had with Congressman Clyburn as well. Like he's an Omega through and through.
Oh, yeah, trust me, he and I are always going at it. And I do want to show this here. It was also great, folks, to see the great Phil Donahue. He had some kind words for me. I grew up watching Phil Donahue doing the work that he did, loved his show. My dad watched his show. So huge thing. I got a chance to actually be on his show when he had a show on MSNBC. When I was in New York, but it was great to see him being honored as well for all of the great work. And so it was great, again, to be there as a guest of Clarence B. Jones. And I'll say this here. I really hope that now there are a lot of civil rights folks who have been honored. But you know, one of the individuals who is yet to be honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom is Reverend Ralph Abernathy. And so a number of people, it was, Reverend Lowry, C.T. Vivian, John Lewis, Diane Nash. We could go on and on. A number of Andrew Young, Reverend Jackson, a lot of people. That's something that I think the White House needs to correct. So hopefully Biden-Harris is reelected. Possibly they will honor Ralph Abernathy for being the one standing, being Dr. King's trusted aide. And also a brother who is still with us, Reverend Jim Lawson. He's the one behind the Nashville movement. That eulogy he gave at John Lewis's funeral, amazing. That brother is still sharp as a tack. I think he's 93 or 94. And so I would really hope that next year, and you know what, frankly, I hope that I don't believe they have to wait a year. I hope they have a special dispensation and honor those two veterans. And so really hope so. Gentlemen, that is it. But of course, Therese had to go. I got to go as well because I got to hop on a plane, y'all. I got to fly to Wilberforce University. I'm going to be speaking tomorrow, the commencement speech. We're going to be live streaming that speech on the Black Star Network. I hit them up, and they did not have the live streaming capability. I was like, don't worry about it. I carry my own stuff. And so we are going to be there 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, Wilberforce University, giving the commencement speech to the class of 2024. Look forward to that. Cameron, Michael, thank you so very much. Michael, you got a class real quick? Go ahead.
Yeah, join me Saturday, May 4th, 2024, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My online history class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. We deal with thousands of years of history. Visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register today.
All right, appreciate it. Just in case y'all have never seen the Presidential Medal of Freedom up close, this is a photo of it right here. This is what it looks like. So pretty cool, All right, folks, that's it. Again, look forward to seeing us at Wilberforce. Again, Monday, I'll be traveling with the Vice President to Detroit for her economic speech. Look for a lot of social media posts of that. And I'm also trying to work out going live. Maybe I can go live from Air Force 2. If not, when we land, I will quickly set up at the Air Force Base. I'm emailing them right now saying, hey, is there a place for me to actually do the last hour of my show? But we're going to have coverage of her speech. And yes, I hope to see y'all at the Charles Wright Museum. If y'all going to be there, I'm going to be going through the crowd. So y'all look for Uncle Roro. I will be in the house. Y'all, when we go to Detroit. So look forward to seeing y'all there on Monday. Wilberforce, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Folks, don't forget, support us in what we do. Join the Bring the Funk fan club. Send your check and money order P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037 -0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Get your audio version on Audible. Also, we do not have many copies left. Get your copy as fast as possible, y'all. I am personally autographing my coverage of the Obama campaign. The The book is called The First, President Barack Obama's Road to the White House, as originally reported by Roland S. Martin. Some content you're not going to find anywhere else. It's a great keepsake. Also, it has the DVD of both of my NAACP Image Award interviews with Senator Obama, Michelle Obama. That was the first 2 Image Awards won by TV One. Again, I'm personally autographing every single copy. We only have 500, and so when they're out, they're out. I'm not printing any more copies. Order at RolandSMartin.com/the first. And you should get your cool feather or shibori pocket squares by going to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. Folks, that's it. We're going to roll the credits of the people who contribute to the show. Thank you for all that y'all have done. I'll see you guys on Monday. Holla!